We created free because someone had to stand for the addicts and loved ones about.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to everyone who braved literal sub-zero temperatures to be here tonight. And for those of you who might be a little smarter than those of us in the room and tuned in online, welcome as well as those people that are joining us from inpatient treatment centers. Here at Free, we're a community of addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees who come together to be curious and grow about spirituality. So this week, we're in the middle of a 5-part series, and it's called How We Survive, so dramatic. But it's focusing on how we build community, the ways in which we build community. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about why community was important. Last week, we talked about the importance of belonging and welcoming new people to let them know that they belong. And the next few weeks, we'll talk about care and service and invitation. So tonight, we will be talking about consistency and rhythms, those rhythms that we establish to help our spiritual life grow. So that's what we're doing. We have Christian will be joining us as our guest storyteller today. So welcome, Christian. I know Christian's parents got snowed in Indiana, but they are joining us online. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Christian's dad. I met Christian's mom once right after one of Christian's relapses, and I went up to Christian. I was like, stop hurting her, Christian. She is lovely and delightful. You met her too, didn't you? Yeah, she was great. I met Christian's siblings as well. So again, thank you for joining us both in person and online.
Here at Free, every week there's something we don't do, and we don't do shame. So on the count of 3, if everyone can say we don't do shame. 1, 2, 3.
We don't do shame.
Perfect.
You shady bitches. And now we just have a few quick announcements, things going on in the community. First and foremost, we'd love to connect with you, get to know you further. If there's some people I was talking to in the room where I'm like, oh yeah, we need to get coffee. We have Connect cards right around the corner, right over here. We'll give you a mug for trusting us with your information. Matt will be over there afterwards, and he'll make sure. I bet if you're really nice to Matt, he'll even get you a t-shirt. And then we also have some merchandise for sale as well. I did order some new merchandise today, and it was from the time that me and Shelly were up here, and I go, recovery looks good on you. So we do have recovery looks good on you shirts coming in, with the O in recovery being the Free logo. So those are on the way in a nice turquoise color. So definitely check out our Connect area, or you can scan that.
So we are on social media, so make sure you follow us. I believe we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, correct?
And YouTube now.
And YouTube now, Yep. So make sure you follow us on all of our socials.
Yep. What's next? I don't remember what's next. Maybe volunteer with us? Yes. So volunteer with us is actually a pretty important thing right now. So we have the setup volunteers, hospitality volunteers, and then also, as we expand to go online and things like that, we're in need of some more AV volunteers. So maybe you don't want to stand up here like Matt does and do all that. If you're curious about what that looks like, you can talk to Ryan afterwards. If you don't know Ryan, he's the one who's been holding down the fort. But also, I think he'd probably just enjoy a Saturday night where he's not doing 5 different things. Our volunteers run the sound and the online streaming. And also, we're working on kind of splitting the duty. So hopefully we'll need 2 people a week. Starting hopefully in February, we'll be able to switch. Right now our volunteers go on an every other week rotation. And we're looking to switch towards monthly, just so, many hands make a lighter load, or whatever that statement is. So, yeah.
So one thing we want to do is give back to our community. And so over on this side, we have an area where you can drop name brand toiletry items. So a lot of times when people go into sober living, we want to make them feel at home, and so they don't get the nicest of a toiletry. So we want to make sure that they're name brand, so they have something nice in sober living when they go.
Perfect. Yep. And so for the rest of the evening, just a quick rundown for anyone who might be joining us for the first time. We're going to start off with some celebrations. So I'll have Matt here walk around with the microphone, raise your hand. If you're joining from the Sober Living House, you can have the case aide on staff shoot me a text message because we want to make sure you're involved. Hopefully starting next week when we have the slide person, YouTube comments will also be involved in the celebrations and the heartaches at the end. Then we'll share a short 10-15 minute message on a topic related to spirituality. We'll listen to a song and meditate for a few minutes before we have our guest storyteller join us up front. We'll close out with heartaches, and heartaches are just those things that maybe are a little bit too heavy to carry out of the room on your own, and it also allows the opportunity for the community to be there in support. We'll close with prayer and get you out of here. So that's the way it's going to roll tonight. And so without further ado, let's start with some celebrations. Let's hear those good things that are going on in life so that we can celebrate with you. So just raise your hand if you have something.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm celebrating that the first week in February I will be moving from a sober living institution into a sober living apartment.
Ooh, nice. Hey. No more hospital beds for Kelly.
Christian, grateful recovering addict. I just got the results from my written exam for the Chicago Police Department, and I passed. So on to the next step.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm an addict. I celebrated 60 days on Monday.
Woo!
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm an addict, and I celebrated 11 months on Wednesday.
Ooh. And without, as long as we don't have any, catastrophes, we will have a cake for Ed on the 14th. So the 14th, we don't work on fronts, but. Oh, is 14 not a year? We'll figure out the details. 1 week after that, the 21st, we'll have a cake. On the 14th, we'll probably have heart-themed cupcakes. Any other celebrations? All right, perfect.
Hello, I'm Matt. I reconnected with a friend I used to work with, and we had some crazy nights together, and I was a little nervous how our relationship would be, and it turns out he's going to be starting at the same job I'm starting, and everything was totally fine, so I'm glad to rekindle that friendship that I thought may have been gone. So.
Oh, that's really good. Ooh. Still got a full 3 minutes, so.
Hi, I'm Shelly. I'm a recovering addict alcoholic. And so Thursday night, I was feeling a little down and having some urges. And I decided to hop on a meeting that I used to frequent online out of Denver, because that's where I got sober. And it was really good to see some familiar faces. They're still meeting there, and it was my first meeting in over a year, besides free, of course, but like an actual 12-step recovery program. And I think that I'm gonna get back into a 12-step recovery program. So
Very
that was a
nice.
good celebration.
Ooh, that is a good celebration. We have one from online, Induced Awe. Says, my sister is getting married. She invited me. Not a guarantee with my family, saying in no world would I have a wedding and not invite you, is what her sister said. So that's beautiful, restored a relationship. So let's clap to that. Definitely, I remember whenever I first got sober, a friend had to sit me down and say, Seth, we're inviting you to this wedding. Don't cause a scene. So those restored relationships are quite beautiful things. So. I guess induced awe could also be a he. Yes. Victor?
I'm Victor. Today I'm re-engaging with my recovery, so yeah.
That's a big one. We're glad to have Victor back in Chicago after a tour of North America. Yeah.
So this feels, it's not that special, but I got to travel back to the home group where I got sober 7 years ago in Connecticut and do that for free because my company sent me back there. And I got to avoid the low temperatures that we had yesterday here in Chicago. So it was a win-win.
I love a good twofer, right? Okay, we have time for one or two more. Okay, well, for all the celebrations that we have and all those good things, I think it's really important to remember recovery really isn't a drab. There's a lot of really good things. There's connecting with people, there's restoring relationships with family, there's trying something new, right? There's reconnecting with friends. So recovery definitely doesn't have to be a drab, right? And so, as I mentioned earlier, this week we're on week 3 of our community building series, where we're just talking about the different ways that we come together and build community, and why that's not only important for those of us that are in recovery, it's also just important for our spiritual lives in general. When we're all isolated and alone, we start to get crazy thoughts in our heads. And this week, we're talking about how that consistency and that rhythm is one of the strongest tools in recovery. And so, like many of us, who had some good 2020 hobbies? Was there any bread bakers in the room? Yeah, Chulpa. Yep. If I would have bet $5,000 that Chulpa and Zeke would be the two bread bakers. I would have bet maybe Hannah. I could have put some money on Hannah. Well, for me, when 2020 came around, I had just started taking care of myself. I was about 2 years sober, and I had just started eating intentionally and had just started going to the gym. And of course, what happened? All the gyms closed down, right? Oh yes, there's a preview of what's going to happen in this story. And so I decided that I wasn't going to let my health and fitness goals go to the side because of the gyms closing down. And so I started running. And just like when we're starting a lot of things that are important to us, we, just like in recovery, where we reach out to someone who's done it before, right? I reached out to my friend Crystal, who is an ultra marathoner, and Crystal is intense. It should have been the picture of Crystal. She runs 100-mile races, and I just reached out to someone who was doing it very well. And I was like, Crystal, what's the trick to being a runner, Because when we see those runners, especially when you can't even do a mile at first, that's a big task. And whenever I reached out to Crystal, she didn't tell me the perfect training plan. She didn't tell me to do speed work or any techniques or anything like that. What Crystal said to me was the secret to being a runner is consistency. It's not about how far you run or how fast you run. It's the fact that you do it regularly. And so I started doing it regularly, and I was like, okay, being a good alcoholic, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to be the most consistent, right? I'm going to do it to the extreme. And so at first I started off with a 21-day run streak, right? That old theory that if you do something 21 days in a row, it becomes a habit. Yep. And so I committed to running at least 1 mile for 21 days in a row. But the thing about 21 days is that's pretty close to 30 days, right? And then 30 days became 50 days, and 50 days became 100 days, and 100 days became 365 days of running at least 1 mile a day. And so what that means is whenever I kind of had a sore ankle, I ran really slow for 1 mile. If I wasn't feeling well, if the weather wasn't great, I would still run this mile, at least, right? But then I started running more than a mile, and like a good alcoholic, I ended up running 50 miles a week. But in that year of consistency, I became a runner, right? I ran 2 marathons and 2 ultra marathons. This picture right here is actually from one of the ultra marathons I ran. This was on their promotional stuff for 2 years. So I became the literal poster child of running. I don't know why I was so happy. I don't know how I was so skinny. But I became the poster child for running. And just like with our physical life, our spiritual life and our recovery lives can kind of mirror the same thing, right? About how consistency really breeds growth. Because growth doesn't come from intensity. Actually, sometimes intensity can hinder growth, right? We all know that person who was all about the gym on January 1st. They bought the whole new outfit. They went for 4 hours. They went to a spin class afterwards, and February 1st, nowhere in sight. Growth actually comes from consistency or a rhythm. And that's true for physical, spiritual, and for communities. So one of the biggest traps that I've learned in both recovery and spirituality is to only show up when we need something. So if the world's on fire, or maybe we're spiraling out of control, or maybe it's the other way around, right? Like maybe we're here only for celebrations. We all know that person that just shows up to 12-step meetings for a chip, right? And the worst trap is when we show up to be entertained, right? When we show up for things that are good for us just to be entertained. It establishes this almost transactional relationship for those things that need us to be good, right? That need us to be there, to be fruitful and fulfilling to others. Because if we only show up when we need recovery, when our ass is on fire, we're not really a community, right? We're more of an emergency room. And we can't all be sick on the same day, because who would be there to welcome and greet those people when they are struggling? And if you're like me, I want y'all to think everything's fine. So no one will notice I'll never show up whenever I'm struggling, right? But if I'm out, people will notice that I'm gone. They'll notice that I'm missing, right? They'll notice things. And that comes from consistency. And honestly, community and being consistent and building these communities is the foundation of spirituality, not just in rooms of recovery. Community is the foundation of spirituality for communities around the world. And one community that I absolutely admire the way that their spiritual life is built on community is actually Judaism. So Judaism really stands out to me as a faith tradition, that community is a core. And they actually lovingly refer to other members of Judaism as members of the tribe. Have you ever heard that phrase? I used to work for a Jewish family back in St. Louis, and it just the way that they all came together and loved and supported each other. And this community has led to centuries of surviving persecution and challenges that probably not many other communities could have survived. And one thing I also loved was just the way that the people in the Jewish community in St. Louis that I was on the outskirts of showed up for each other. Because Judaism, it doesn't just happen to be built on community. Judaism actually has some pretty foundational things that lead to their community being built. It's built on regular presence and not just spiritual crisis response. They have a strong calendar of holidays and rituals, sure. But actually, Judaism is anchored in a weekly tradition called Shabbat, right? Anyone ever been to a Shabbat dinner? Actually, one of the most robust spiritual experiences I had was at a Shabbat dinner. And Shabbat is this weekly gathering where they gather around food and ritual and connection. And when it's a good week or a bad week or a boring week or a stressful week or a busy week, members of the Jewish community always come together for this thing called Shabbat. And it's not because every week where they go, they have a spiritual experience, or it's because their community is foundational to their spiritual experience. In the Jewish community, it's not built on emergency response, it's built on a rhythm of spirituality, and the rhythm ends up building a strong community. And then, when emergencies do come up, they already have that time set aside to be there for each other. And that was the original foundation for Christian communities as well, right? I think sometimes we forget that Christian communities arose out of this Jewish tradition. And Christian wisdom pushes back on this idea that community is only there as an emergency response. Hebrews says, let us consider how to provoke one another to love and good deeds by not neglecting to meet together, but encouraging one another. It doesn't say we only meet when it's exciting or we need help. It simply says don't neglect meeting together. Connection forms when consistency is maintained. And Elaine Heath, in her book, The 5 Means of Grace, she invites these different ways that we invite God in. And some of them are like prayer and fasting and searching scripture and doing these things. But she actually has this term. She calls it Christian conferencing, but we'll call it spiritual conferencing just to be a little more broad. But she argues that spirituality is shaped when people stay in these honest and perfect relationships with one another. These relationships aren't built on the need to fix each other or to perform for one another, but just to be formed and grow together. And we hear this all the time in rooms of recovery. Anyone ever been told to do a 90 and 90 when you keep messing up, right? Or maybe call your sponsor every day. And early on in 12 Steps, the sponsors actually told people to make their bed every day. And it's because when we get involved in these rituals, it leads to us feeling this sense of togetherness. Anyone sponsor ever told them to pray every morning and every night? And even if I was meeting with Greg this week, it says, I don't remember the guy's name, but it's like, hey, pray Seth's God, right? If you don't believe in God, or you're still kind of getting there. And usually when we start to break these consistent rhythms is when we're actually at our highest risk. Because we never know when that consistency is going to be needed. In the summer of 2023, I was in what was called a 5-year slump. The 5-year slump hit me hard, and it's that point in sobriety, at least in my story, where recovery just felt grueling. The meetings didn't seem as engaging. Whenever I heard people talk like they're spiritual giants, I'd been around long enough to know they're actually spiritual assholes, and it just got boring, right? It got boring and repetitive, and I heard the same things over and over again, so I started to pull away, and I didn't pull away all at once, right? I went from 5 meetings a week, which is probably a little excessive, to 2 meetings a week, and then 1 meeting a week, and then a meeting every 2 weeks, and 1 meeting a month, and eventually I wasn't going to any at all. I wasn't calling my sponsor. I wasn't practicing any spiritual principles. I wasn't calling any friends in recovery. I wasn't leaning on the support of others. And truth be told, my life was getting kind of busy anyways. You know, recovery had given me a lot at that point. You know, I was 5 years sober. I was back in grad school. I was working full time. I had a mortgage, which is something I never thought would happen again. And I genuinely don't think that I was about to use, but I was restless and irritable and discontent, and honestly, I was kind of a jerk. And then eventually the pain got great enough that I had to do something about it, and I'm grateful that that something about it wasn't to drink or use, but that something about it was not this big Facebook post of recommitment. It wasn't a long, drawn-out, we've all seen them. My favorite is the Facebook post to quit recovery or quit church or quit whatever, like this long attention grabbing. I didn't do any of that. But what I did do was make this like quiet level of dedication that pain can often drive us to do. I found new meetings, or maybe I revisited old ones with different expectations. But the key was I cut my expectations. I wasn't showing up expecting to be inspired, because when you do that, you're not going to get inspired. I wasn't showing up expecting to get some great insight that was going to change me, and I most certainly wasn't showing up to be entertained. I was just showing up to be with other people. And oftentimes, the meeting didn't do anything, right? And I doubt I said, at that stage of life, I doubt I said anything that helped anyone. But the fellowship after the meeting is what ended up pulling me through. People noticing me there, people excited to see me being in conversation and connection and loving and caring people. And then I started to reconnect with these people, and they were good people. And slowly, quietly, something inside of me shifted as I rebuilt the community that I guess I had forgot that I needed. And there's a truth that is echoed across the literature in many recovery programs. Recovery Dharma states it as, we don't wait to feel different before we practice in order to feel different, right? Smart recovery says motivation follows action, not the other way around. And if you've ever been to an AA meeting with a bunch of crusty old people in it, you've heard the said, it's called into action, not into thinking. Because we don't show up because we feel like it. We feel different because we do show up in spiritual and communal spaces. Judaism teaches it to us through shared rhythm. Buddhism and recovery dharma teach it to us through practice. Smart recovery teaches it to us through behavior. And they all use different language, but they reiterate the same truth. We show up and we let our lives grow. Presence and rhythm is more important than almost anything else. That's what Christian scripture tells us in Hebrews, and that's what recovery wisdom already knows. That's what my own life has taught me, that consistency gets us results. We don't need people here at Free so that the organization survives, right? We don't exist to continue an organization, right? We show up so that we can stay in community because your presence matters even when you're bored, even when you're cynical, and even when you don't expect it to pay off. And maybe your presence matters the most then. Because someone else might be barely hanging in there by a thread, and your presence matters to them. So the invitation tonight isn't dramatic. It's simple. Show up when you need it, and show up when you don't. And if it's not this space, if this space isn't the right fit for you, find a space that is. Because there's one. I went to a board game night last night, and there were some people that fit in that space, right? And they come there for community. There's a space that we all fit in. We're not all that terminally unique that there's no spaces for us. Because recovery and spirituality and community, they're not built on that level of urgency. They might start on that level of urgency, but they're built on the consistency and rhythms. So let's take a moment, and we don't need to close your eyes if you don't feel comfortable, but you can if that helps. We like to listen to a song every week and just kind of meditate, and I think I say this every single week, right? For some of us, the 3 minutes is going to feel like forever, and the song is going to be needed. For some of us, the song's going to be distracting, and you got another 27 minutes in ya, so we try to hit the middle. But I just challenge you to bring to mind a place that maybe you've quietly pulled away from. And not because you're in crisis, but because boredom or you're disillusioned or frustrated. Notice what that distance may have caught you, and not the shame, just honesty. As we take a few moments as the song plays, think not about what you can get, but what that community needs from you. Even though I did make Justin watch that music video earlier today. So, Christian's mom, do not watch that music video. So I'm actually super excited about our guest storyteller tonight. So this person was actually one of the first people. So last week we talked about invitation, and one of the first people, whenever I moved to Chicago, that said, let's do brunch, let's hang out, and let's do all that. And their recovery journey since then has not been linear. But I think that that is actually a pretty powerful story for all of us here about showing up and staying consistent. He took me to this AA meeting once, or 12-step meeting once, and someone was like, ooh, those guys are gritty. They must be in undisclosed other fellowship. But I can't find Christian attractive because he's like that weird little brother, you know? And so I want to invite Christian up as our guest storyteller tonight. Let's hear it for Christian. Oh. Is your mom going to be uncomfortable about the amount of times I've mentioned her tonight?
I don't know, are you?
Drop it in the comments. Christian, so, let's start off just a few minutes. Tell us, I know most of the people in the room know you, but for those that haven't had the opportunity or pleasure to meet you, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Name's Christian, grateful recovering crystal meth addict.
Mm-hmm.
I came from about as normal of a household as, one usually expects.
I was shocked by that. Whenever I met your siblings and parents, I was like, these people are so normal.
Oh yeah, I'm the black sheep.
I asked your sister, I go, has Christian always been so spicy? And she goes, oh yeah.
Thanks, Rena. I'm the black sheep. And that's okay. I've learned to love it and appreciate it. I was born on an Air Force base in San Antonio, Texas, to 2 Air Force personnel. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Love you. It was, looking back on it, it's funny how we usually are given everything we need before we realize that we have it. I was born with everything I needed. I just didn't realize until adulthood. Normal high school career, normal childhood in Northwest Indiana until things weren't normal. I was a young gay kid with no support, and that's okay. I ended up getting very sick. I contracted HIV at about 13, 14 years old. And I didn't tell anybody until about 20. And that does something to a kid, naturally. It's funny to say this out loud in front of people, but I wouldn't change anything. That's some priceless perspective that I've now learned to appreciate. Being at death's door does something strange to someone. And I didn't really appreciate it in the moment because I was dying and I was terrified. But that feeling stuck with me my entire life, and it's become a sense of just things being really simple. No matter how hard things get, no matter how many times I relapse, no matter how many times I disappointed my family, no matter how many times I found myself in awful situations, that sense of, one day I won't be here anymore was pervasive and stuck with me, and it's now core to my recovery, and that, Rule 62 applies. Never take yourself too seriously, no matter how good things get, no matter how bad things get. I can wake up every morning and, laugh at the cosmic joke. But because of that, I was numbing my entire adolescence. I didn't realize at the time because, you think you're living a normal life. I was in denial when I was a young teenager that I was sick. I was scared, I was terrified, and I numbed. I raved a lot, I did a lot of drugs, and I was really just trying to escape. And I didn't realize it at the time until, later on in adulthood, and that's okay, I've learned through therapy, which I highly recommend getting into if you're in recovery.
Or not, even if you're not in recovery,
right, 100%, therapists are awesome. I've now learned to be a parent to that inner child. I was still a child myself, and a child can't be a parent. And now that I'm an adult who can hold that inner child and tell him everything's going to be okay, he now has a space to grow up. And because of that, I can now sit in front of people and tell this story because, I've allowed myself to grow up and those things aren't happening anymore. I got addicted to crystal meth at about 21 years old. I was introduced in a very strange way, a very, very rich man who I've come to forgive. And I thought if millionaires can do crystal meth, I can too. So naturally. And, things went downhill from there. Spent a lot of time homeless here on the streets in Chicago. It's about a year and a half. The whole couch surfing thing, too ashamed to go back home. I had a home to go back to, but I couldn't face my family the way I was. I missed a lot of important milestones, and I'm still learning to forgive myself for that one. It's a process. Recovery is not linear. But since then, I've gotten sober. I got sober in Austin, came here with nothing, and got my life back together. Lost it all over again, realizing that all the material stuff I thought I wanted wasn't the answer. And now I'm in a place where, having lost everything all over again, I couldn't be happier. All the flashy stuff doesn't equal sobriety, and especially emotional sobriety at that. I am now at Bonaventure, just around the corner, getting my life back together, getting my family back, getting my friends back. I know most everyone in this room, and I have a special connection with all of you. I love you guys. It takes a village. So it's a gist of my story.
Yeah. You kind of alluded to this. Your recovery journey hasn't been linear.
Not at all.
And can you tell us, like, maybe some of those lessons learned, or maybe some of the things that picked up, and like what are you like kind of focusing on doing different this time? I mean, for me, whenever I relapsed at 2.5 months sober, 7.5 years, almost 8 years ago now, it was that I was missing the God thing, right? And look at where we're at now. So I guess I did an okay job at that. Yeah. And so what's different? And like, will you navigate us through like kind of the thought processes and the emotional journeys of those different relapses? Because I know there's a lot of people in the room and online that would love to hear that, right?
Okay, first off, if any of you have ever relapsed, give that version of you a massive hug and tell them that it's okay and you still love them. That's the biggest thing I learned from this last one, because in this last one, which is my last, I feel it in my heart and soul, thank God. It came to a point where I knew exactly why I was relapsing. I knew the feelings that led me up to the relapse. I knew it wasn't a good idea, and I did it anyway. And I remember the next morning, I left my apartment and went to my therapy office, which was just right here, numb, completely numb of the unbelievable pain I was experiencing the night before. A bunch of trauma came up and I wasn't prepared. I wasn't zipped up properly. And I got to my therapist's office, numb with a smile on my face, and I told my therapist, I feel nothing right now and I love it. I can't keep living like this anymore. Please help me. And I realized in that moment that I was getting so close to building a life that was bigger than my addiction, but I wasn't quite there yet. But the primary difference between this relapse and all the ones before is I was so ashamed of the fact that I had relapsed before that I didn't bother trying. And in this one, I realized that I had what I needed. I just didn't know it when it mattered most. And I was okay with that. It sounds strange. Relapse is a part of my story. I don't recommend doing it. But I learned that I already had everything I needed. I actually have you to thank for it, too. I was a flake prior to this relapse.
I called her out.
Yeah. And thank you.
I said, we don't make plans anymore till you start showing up, girl.
That's a friend. No, I honestly have you to thank for that, because my entire life I'd been living as a flake. I would say I would show up to things. It was little lies, right? And then when it mattered, when things that weren't true started being spread around as rumors and I knew they weren't true, it didn't matter because everybody knew me as a flake and a liar. And that was a switch. That was an inflection point, and I have you to thank for that, Seth, because I realized in that moment that I never want to feel that way again. I never want the people I've come to love and trust to see me that way again. I didn't realize that that's how I was making people feel. I was denying myself the dignity of allowing myself to feel the pain of realizing through other people what I was doing to them and what I was causing them. That's something, no matter how painful it is, everyone deserves to feel, because that's growth. And thank you for that. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. It's hard for me to accept a compliment whenever I was just telling you off, but I was like, Christian, integrity matters, right? And I go, if you're not good for your word, it says a lot about your character. And if you want to be someone who lives as a person of character, you might, like mine is just more discreet.
All right.
You know me, notorious for being discreet.
Yes.
So, one thing though, during the active use part, you pulled away, right?
Oh, 100%.
But like, outside of that, you're someone that I would say does a pretty good job at being connected to community, right?
Thank you.
Is there any, not everyone's community comes easy, you know?
Takes time.
Yeah, so what are some of those things that you do that are a little bit more intentional about building community, right? Maybe for that person, I know we've all been in a room where it felt like everyone were besties and we're sitting kind of just outside the circle, right? Like what would you tell someone like that, because you are a part of, you know, such a robust community?
Yeah. This took a lot of time to realize, and this is probably like writ large for anybody who's in recovery, and it sounds like a cliche, but like it's hard to embody, realizing that it's not about me. It's something my therapist said too. He said, Christian, because my therapist and I are like mirrors of each other. It's the weirdest thing. We didn't go through all this stuff for no reason. It's not about us anymore. It's about helping whoever, that next young kid who has the same story that we do, to survive whatever they're going through, because we did, and we can show them that they can. And I think that's my MO in recovery all the time. No matter how uncomfortable people may make me, no matter how ostracized I may feel, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, like, I find that a lot more gets done and a lot more connection is made when you approach with that selfless sort of love. You know, someone could ostracize me all they want. I'm finally at a point in my recovery where, like, I'm beginning to know who I am, and I still care for them and hope the best for them anyway. Even some of the worst people I've ever met, I've come to grow to wish them well and hope that they get the help that they need. And that applies to everyone, you know. Because I live that principle, I found that, you know, it's pretty easy to make friends with most anyone once you listen and give them the time, you know. Because really, everybody just wants to be heard, and that's work. You know, it's the cup doesn't spilleth over always, but you know,
she's been reading her Bible.
Thank you. He gave me a Bible. But yeah, this community is fantastic. It's amazing. I love each and every one of you. You know, it takes a village, and I would not be sober without you guys. Yeah. You know, because of this community, I go rock climbing with this one over here twice a week. You know, I have a solid group of friends, you know, a varied group of friends. My recovery and my spiritual life is bigger than my addiction could ever be now. And it's to a point now where I wouldn't dream of throwing it away, because I wouldn't dream of doing that. You know, I love you guys too much.
Yeah.
So.
I'm saving this video. If you ever relapse, I'm coming for you.
Oh, God.
And so tonight we were kind of talking about rhythms and consistency and showing up, and about how it might be the least sexy topic we talk about, right? But it's also one of the most important.
Yes.
And so will you talk about you kind of mentioned rock climbing, you mentioned coming here. Can you talk about those rhythms and rituals, or, you know, those things that you do to keep you showing up, and how, you know, something I didn't say in my message was it's so much easier when your autopilot is showing up, right?
Right.
So can you kind of walk through some of those and maybe even pieces of the message that like might have struck home, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. Be it anything, like a big thing for me right now is working out, swimming, recovery, work, rock climbing. And as with anything, you start out sucking at it. And it's like you mentioned, you start out terrible.
I thought you were going to say it's like you, because I'm not that good at rock climbing. Yeah.
I wasn't either once upon a time. But I kept showing up because I liked it, no matter how embarrassed I might have been, you know? And with time, it took years to get this head back in order, and it's not there yet, but it could be for anything. Recovery, it could be for God, family, friends, a lover, anything. It takes time. And I realized that I was denying myself that time by going back over and over and over again. But the funny part is, even though I was going back over and over again, the time was still building up. You know, I wasn't seeing that. And now it's like a muscle you work out, as with anything. Recovery is like a muscle you work out, and eventually it gets stronger than your addiction. Yeah. It just does. You know, and that is a beautiful day. That is a beautiful moment when you realize you walk into it, you're looking out the window and the sun's shining in your eyes, and you realize that peace was the prize the entire time. I was mistaking peace for boredom, and that was a sea change for me.
Yeah. I remember I was like 3 months sober and I was complaining to my sponsor about how bored I was. And he goes, honey, that's just serenity. You just don't know what it feels like.
Wait till you find out that was the whole point of being here.
Oh, yeah. And now, like, all I want is a little, I would love to be bored for an afternoon.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah. Literally, I have to rent a cabin in Lake Geneva to be bored for a minute, okay? Boredom doesn't come easy. And so finally, you know, we asked this question to most of our guest storytellers, and I love the answers that we get. So for someone out there who's still struggling, or maybe, you know, Christian from however long ago that was just going through it, like, if you could tell them one thing and they didn't hear anything else we said tonight, what's the one thing you'd want them to walk out the door with?
Oh man, this is for everybody in this room, but especially for the people in recovery houses right now. I see you, I feel you, I know the feeling. Take a moment tonight when you're by yourself, look in the mirror, give that version of yourself, that addict that's still in your eyes that you tend to like hide away and lock away because you're ashamed of it, give them a massive hug and tell them everything's going to be okay. Him or her, everything is going to be okay.
Or them.
Or them, yes, thank you. Tell them everything's going to be okay, because it is. You may not feel it now, but even just that small ritual, be it once a night, once a week, when you find the dopamine to do it, it adds up, and that inner child, that addict, starts to believe you, starts to trust you again, and in doing so, the way you approach yourself changes. And then sooner or later, the way other people approach you changes. And then sooner or later, your entire life changes. Mine has, and it can for you too. So,
awesome. Well, thank you very much, Christian. She understood the assignment. And so now it comes to part of our evening where we just pause for a second from the spiritual flow and talk a little bit about giving and generosity. And just like those rhythms in our own life help keep us sane and grounded and spiritually fit, the rhythms in our community do too. And one of those is through giving and generosity. Not only keeps the lights on, but helps us grow in the direction and the places that we want to go. And one of those ways for me to make that really easy is if you scan this little barcode or go on our website and click giving, you can set up recurring giving, which just kind of keeps you in that rhythm and keeps you going. The recurring giving is part of what really kind of helps us be able to plan to keep going. Recently, we've started a campaign for chairs. If anyone was here last week, you know we had to steal some of those awful maroon wine-colored chairs from there. And so definitely as we build and grow, the financial commitments from people in our communities and those that love us and join us online as well is what helps keep us going so people can show up. And so now, and there's a little cash thing around there if that's easier for you. So it comes to a part of our night that I kind of alluded to at the beginning, and it's heartbreak. So these are the things that might be just a little bit too heavy to carry out of the room alone. And so I think I'll have Matt go around. And again, actually, Ryan was able to get a comment from the YouTube into my hands. And so comment on the YouTube stream. If you're in the sober living home, tell your case aide, and they will make sure that we can carry those burdens with you. So.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm an addict. A girl that I was in recovery with went back out there and she ended up passing away this week. So that was a lot for me to deal with. So if we could all just say a prayer for her family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's very heavy.
I'm Job, I'm an addict. I just wanted to pray for people in Minneapolis and Minnesota because it's like fucked up and kind of scary what's going on there. And just seeing it on the news, and first of all, they're so brave. I commend their courage, but again, it's just insane that they went out also like in the coldest day to protest. I think it was brave, so.
Absolutely. You know, I've talked to quite a few people this week. It feels like it's the point of winter where we have a communal seasonal depression. And that's easy to joke about or laugh about, right? It's lighthearted, but I think there's something real in like the heaviness that sometimes these months carry, and like lacking sunlight and lacking the community of going to the beach and all that. So I think it's important to just like show a little extra grace right now. Yeah. We'll just hold space, even if no one wants to raise their hand or bring up a heartbreak. I think it's important to just hold space for all that heaviness that's carried out there. Okay, well, if there's anything else that you might have that might come up, feel free to touch base with someone after. I'm looking around the room. I see Matt and Shelley. I see Kelly. I see other Matt. I see Christian, Ed. I see a bunch of people in here that are very safe people to share your pain with. And so feel free to reach out to one of them, pull them aside. They'll sit with you. There's some good human beings, and Peter, there's some good human beings in this room that would be happy to support you through anything that might be coming up. Oh, do we have one more online? Okay. Let's see. Okay, one more from online. My brother called for the first time in 5 years and is the most miserable addict I've ever seen. He also bore news that my former mom is now full fesh and will be at the wedding. And so coming up on interacting with people that are still in deep addiction, we pray for all those people that are still out there. So thank you for those joining us online. Oh, one more, perfect. And I deeply hope we can navigate my sister's wedding without her having to navigate my mother spewing hate about people like the observers in Minnesota. Yeah, navigating those family dynamics and those conflicting things are definitely, most certainly, a heartache. So thank you again for sharing online. And so every Saturday night we close with a prayer, a nice communal prayer for us to all do together. Approach prayer in whatever way you feel the most comfortable. And I think I say this every week that as a kid I was told to pray with my head bowed and my hands closed, so I usually pray with my hands open and my head looking up. So if you will, just join me in this closing prayer. Teach me the rhythm of this day. Help me move in time with what matters. Let pace be enough. Let me be patient for peace. Slow me when I rush. Stir me when I stall. Amen. Thank you for joining us this week. I hope to see you back next week. There's some coffee, and I think Ed brought Barbie flavored cupcakes. So come join us, hang out. We'll join in together. So.